Hey, this is Richie. I'm here with the Week 5 reviews for college football. This is a fan of football A13 YouTube channel. Before I jump into the review, I do want to say there was a linebacker for Tennessee State this past weekend. They were playing against Vanderbilt. His name is Christian Abercrombie. And during the game, he collapsed on the field. He got taken to the hospital. He had immediate brain surgery, and as of right now, he's in critical condition. So, hopefully he has a speedy recovery. We all kind of get lost in the game, and we get really caught up in the moment watching football and in the sports and everything, but at the end of the day, it's just a sport. It's just a game, and he's going there to get an education. So, he's still a human being at the end of the day, so hopefully he can recover from that. That being said, let's launch right into the reviews. I'm going to start with last Thursday's game. The Miami Hurricanes took on the North Carolina Tar Heels. And this one wasn't even close. Miami, they poured it on. They won 47-10. They had 3 defensive touchdowns, the first time they've done that since the year 2000. Quarterback N'Kosi Perry, he got the start. He was 8 of 12, 125, a touchdown, a pick. It was solid, but they really leaned on the running game and the defense. DJ Dallas, 11 carries, 114 yards and a touchdown. Travis Homer ran for 88 yards. Really, it was just, the defense outscored North Carolina. Like I said, 3 defensive touchdowns. They didn't even need the offense, apparently. The North Carolina Tar Heels, they had 2 quarterbacks go, and one had 3 interceptions. They really didn't get a whole lot. They didn't have a whole lot going on there, so Miami won big on that one. Go to the Friday games. So the Tulane Green Wave beat the Memphis Tigers 40-24. It's actually pretty big upset in the American Athletic Conference. Tulane went in 1-3. Memphis was 3-1. They had one of the top 5 scoring offenses in the country, and one of the top 10 in total offense and yards per game. And they were held to 24 points. They were averaging over 49, held to 24. They were averaging 593 yards, and they were held to 277 yards. Even Darrell Henderson, the running back for Memphis, I was touting it up. He was the nation's leading rusher. He was averaging 177 per game. He was held to 51 yards. Tulane had 8 sacks in the game. Their offense was able to put up a bunch of points. Their running back Darius Bradwell ran for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 318 yards as a team. They held down Memphis. Tulane was close in a few games earlier this year, and they came through here, and they might be a force to reckon with for the rest of the year in the American Athletic Conference. Then the other Friday game was Colorado Buffaloes and UCLA Bruins, and it was close for half. UCLA, I don't think Chip Kelly, they gotta get something going, but Colorado beat them 38-16. They have a freshman quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, at UCLA, 17 of 35, 138 and touchdown. They didn't have a lot going. Joshua Kelly, the running back, had 12 carries, 124 yards, so he had a good game. Their defense played well in the first half, but they couldn't stop it. Steven Montez, man, he's on fire. He was 22 of 26, 237 and a touchdown, and ran for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trayvon McMillian, the Virginia Tech transfer, ran for 102 yards and a touchdown. Their wide receiver, Laviska Shenault, he came in leading the nation, averaging 151 yards per game, and he had 12 catches, 126 yards and a touchdown. They just could not stop him. And Colorado just kind of they ended up doing what they wanted, and they're 4-0, and they're doing really, really well. I'm just going to call out the kicker. I just thought it was interesting. James Stefano for Colorado. He was 1-1 at field goal, 5 for 5 extra points. He's the oldest player in college football right now. He's 31 years old. Just give him a shout out. All right, going to the Saturday games. Alabama Crimson Tide took on the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and it was 28-0 after the first quarter. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback, was 8 for 8, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts came in, was 4 of 6, 118 yards and a touchdown. And even the third-string quarterback, Mac Jones, he went 1 for 2, but his one completion was the second longest completion in school history. It was a 94-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle, who, by the way, also had a punt return for a touchdown. Alabama they score however they want. They do it on offense. They ran for 268 yards. They had 2 guys over 100 yards receiving. Jalen Waddle, 3 receptions, 138, 2 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs, the third, 5 catches, 116, 2 touchdowns. They blocked the punt. They just do what they do. Oh, and the coach for Louisiana, Billy Napier, he was a former Saban assistant, and that means Saban is now 14-0 versus his former assistant. So he knows how to bring up coaches and knows how to beat them. Louisiana, on with the positive for them. Their running back Trey Ragas had 16 carries for 111 yards and a touchdown. They did run for 200 yards against Alabama's defense, so maybe that's something that a future opponent of Alabama can exploit. We'll see. But Alabama just cruised. Next game, the Georgia Bulldogs, they beat the Tennessee Volunteers 38-12, and it was actually a little bit closer than that. It was 24-0 at one point, and Tennessee, they came back, they made it a game 24-12, but Georgia then went on to win after that. They ran for 251 yards as a team. They had Georgia, they kind of struggled a little bit. They had a play where the quarterback, he fumbled, but I guess when things go right, they go right, because one of the Georgia players picked up the fumble and ran it 31 yards in for a touchdown. So I guess when they go right, they go right, and for Tennessee, when they go wrong, they go wrong. They couldn't jump on that fumble. They couldn't capitalize on it. But Tennessee, their quarterback, Jarrett Garantano, 13-21, 143, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Georgia just kind of do what they do, and they won. All right, one of the games of the day, the Clemson Tigers beat the Syracuse Orange 27-23, and there's so much to say about this game. Syracuse went up 23-13. They were up in the fourth quarter. Eric Dungey, the quarterback for Syracuse, 26 of 41, 250 yards. He did not throw a touchdown. He did throw an interception, but he ran for 2 touchdowns as well. They probably should have scored more. Clemson, they came in. Their starting quarterback, Kelly Bryant, he transferred during the week. So freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence got the start. It was actually because Trevor Lawrence got the start that Kelly Bryant decided to transfer. During the game, Trevor Lawrence got hurt, so basically they were down to their third-string quarterback, Chase Bryce. But all he did was lead them to a 94-yard drive for the winning touchdown. Oh, and by the way, he converted a 4th and 6 on that drive. He was 7 of 13, 83 yards. They leaned on the running game after that. Travis Etienne, 27 carries, 203 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Their defense made the plays at the end. They got 2 sacks on Eric Dungey when he got the ball with like 38 seconds left or something. They got 2 sacks late to kind of end it. It was this close to being an upset. But Clemson got the win. However, their future, they would play Wake Forest next week, and I'm going to break that one down for you guys. in my previews. Alright, next game. One of the other games of the day where College Game Day was, Ohio State Buckeyes took on the Penn State Nittany Lions. This kind of is what these two teams, they get together the last 3 years and they come out with a classic. Penn State, though, couldn't hold on for a win. They were up 26-14 in the fourth quarter. Trace McSorley, the quarterback, 16 of 32, 286, 2 touchdowns, ran for 175 yards. He had a school record 461 total yards. KJ Hamler had 4 receptions, 138 yards and a touchdown, and one was over 90 yards. I'm just going to look at that, 93, yeah, a 93-yard touchdown pass. McSorley, he's still up for the Heisman in my opinion. But Ohio State, they came back and won 27-26. Dwayne Haskins, 22 of 39, 270, 3 touchdowns and a pick. He led them down the field late in the game to make it a game, and then for the winning score. Kind of a questionable call later in the game. Penn State had the ball on Ohio State's side of the field, 4th and 5, and they call a run play. Like, just a straight up kind of just hand off. That, like, you have a Heisman candidate, Trace McSorley, who had 461 yards. He ran for 175. Why would you take it out of his hand? Like, even if he ran it, it is kind of a stupid call. Let's be real. Like that. I mean, James Franklin, he fucked up with that one. Ohio State got the win though. Next game, LSU and Ole Miss. I picked Ole Miss to upset them, and LSU killed them. The best game so far for quarterback Joe Burrow for LSU, 18 of 25, 292 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran for 96 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 281 yards as a team. Joe Burrow's 388 total yards is 4th in school history. Ole Miss did not help themselves though with 17 penalties, and all of that adds up to LSU winning 45-16. The running back for Ole Miss, Scotty Phillips, he ran for 96 yards and a touchdown. He had an okay game. The quarterback, Ta'amu, did not play. 19 of 38, 178 and a interception, not even a touchdown. LSU got that one, and they have a pretty big game next week against the Gators, and I'll break that down later. All right, next game, Oklahoma Sooners and Baylor. What can we say about Kyler Murray? He was suspended for the first possession. He did not start, technically. And then all he did was pass for 432 yards, 6 touchdowns, and ran for 45 more yards and another touchdown. He was 17 of 21, 432, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 7 total touchdowns. They beat Baylor 66-33. They doubled them up. Maybe their defense probably needs to look at themselves a little bit, but this is Kyler Murray. He has to be in that Heisman race right now. He's tearing it up. They play Texas next week, the Red River rivalry, and that'll be the showcase for Kyler Murray. Running back Kennedy Brooks ran for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Marquise Brown, 5 catches, 132 and 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb, 3 catches, 101 and touchdown. They had 6 sacks defensively. I'll shout out Baylor. They did put up 33. Charlie Brewer, 38 of 60, 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. Denzel Mims, 11 catches, 114 and a touchdown. Jalen Hurd, the former Tennessee running back who transferred, 9 catches, 104 and a touchdown. You know, Baylor looks to be a pretty decent team. Maybe they make a bowl, but Oklahoma is way too much, and they're looking like maybe a possible playoff contender. Alright, so the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they killed Stanford 38-17, and this is sort of what I was expecting. I'm pretty sure I picked Notre Dame. If anybody saw it last week, Oregon almost went up 31-7 on Stanford. a ball bounced the wrong way. Stanford returns a touchdown. They get in a game. Stanford wins in overtime, 38-31. They come all the way back. But Oregon moved it up and down the field on Stanford. They kind of, I felt like Stanford was overrated, and Notre Dame did to Stanford what I thought they would do. It was close for the first half, but offensively Notre Dame moved it all around on them. Quarterback Ian Book, 24 of 33, 270 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He ran for 47 yards. Dexter Williams is an interesting story. He was suspended for the first 4 games, and then his first touch was a 45-yard touchdown run. He ran for 161 and a touchdown. Miles Boykin, the wide receiver for Notre Dame, had 11 catches, 144 yards and a touchdown. Their team, they had 5 sacks, and Jerry Tillery had 4. That was a hell of a game for that defensive end. Stanford, they just, Bryce Love hasn't been able to get anything going this year. He had a long touchdown run and then was held to 73 yards rushing. I don't know. Notre Dame looks pretty strong. They won going away on that one. All right, Auburn Tigers took on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, and Auburn only won 24-13. There was a lightning delay, but Southern Miss, they came in with the number 8 ranked passing offense. Quarterback Jack Abraham, 30 of 44, 215, and a touchdown. He did throw 2 picks, which wasn't good, but especially in a close game. Quarterback for Auburn, Jarrett Stidham, it was 19 of 33, 245, 2 touchdowns. They didn't do a whole lot. They just kind of came in, and it was a win. But they might have to fix some stuff if they want to contend with Alabama in the SEC West. All right, the BYU Cougars took on the Washington Huskies. I thought this would be close. Washington won 35-7. They demolished them. Drake Browning had maybe one of the best games of his career, and that's saying a lot because he's had a hell of a career. Hell, he became the school's all-time leading passer at Washington, and that's saying a lot. Washington has had some fantastic quarterbacks go through there. Not like some would go on to the NFL to be good, but just college-wise, they've had some great offenses in their history and some great quarterbacks. Jake Browning, 23 of 25, 277 yards and a touchdown, and ran for a touchdown. They ran for 187 yards as a team. Wide receiver Aaron Fuller, 8 catches, 107. BYU, all I can say is they avoided a shutout. Their quarterback, Tanner Mangum, his completion percentage was nice, 18 of 21, but 160 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. They couldn't really do a whole lot. It was Washington's game, and mostly Jake Browning. 23-25 is pretty incredible. And BYU has a really, really good defense, so Washington got that in the end. So the next game, West Virginia and Texas Tech. So this ended up being a bit of a shootout that I expected it to be. It didn't start that way. West Virginia got the win 42-34, but they were up 35-10. Will Grier, he's still up there for Heisman. He threw for 370, 3 touchdowns. Marcus Sims at wide receiver, 9 catches, 138 and touchdown. Alan Bowman for Texas Tech, the quarterback I've been hyping. He was a freshman. He kind of struggled. He was 9 of 20, 123 and a touchdown and a pick. They took him out. They put Jet Duffy in, and he almost brought them back. Jet Duffy was 16 of 27, 172, a touchdown. He threw 2 picks, but he did run for 86 yards and a touchdown. However, he brought them back to within 35-27, and they had the ball. And then he threw an interception that was returned for what was the clinching touchdown. Antoine Wesley, wide receiver for Texas Tech, 8 catches, 110 and a touchdown, and one of the best catches of the day. Everybody was looking at the Penn State catch. His was better, I'm telling you. Jadion High, 6 catches, 105 and a touchdown. And so it ended up being a really exciting game that West Virginia came out with in the end. All right, the UCF Knights, they took on the Pitt Panthers, and this was all UCF. UCF won 45-14. Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback for UCF, the second straight game where he had 6 total touchdowns. He threw for 328, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Ran for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 240 as a team. Adrian Killins, he may very well be the fastest player in the nation, period. And maybe one of the fastest people in the nation. He was a track star. He's a running back. He also catches passes. He only caught 3 passes for 140 yards and a touchdown. The most significant thing I saw with UCF, though, was their defense. They held Pittsburgh 163 passing, 109 rushing. But if anybody had watched UCF, they missed tackles all over the place their first 3 games, and they tackled and tackled. They really improved, which will help them. They play Southern Methodist next week, which has a strong offense or potentially strong. Going forward, if they keep that level of defense up and their offense, I mean they were up 31-7 at halftime. UCF will be very difficult to stop. Oh, and by the way, they've won 17 games in a row, and they've actually scored 30 or more points in 17 straight games. Now, the NCAA record was actually set last season by the USF Bulls. They did it in 24 straight games. The kind of coincidental thing is, if UCF keeps this going, if they keep scoring 30 or more points, then that means the game that they will tie the record will be the last game of the season, which is USF. So if that wasn't very clear, basically, if they want to tie the record of 24 straight, they'll have to do it against USF at the end of the year if they continue that. And they very well could. They very well could keep scoring 30 or more every game. All right, we'll move on to the next one. The Michigan Wolverines against the Northwestern Wildcats. Michigan was down 17-0. Northwestern apparently can't keep leads. Northwestern was up 17-0. And then Michigan came back and won 20-17. Karan Higdon, the running back for Michigan, 30 carries, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They had 6 sacks as a defense. The Northwestern played well. I just wanted to kind of shout out to Jeremy Larkin. He filled in really, really well. He was one of the top running backs in the Big Ten and sort of the nation, but he had to retire due to a some kind of spinal condition. So I know they'll miss him, but it's probably the right move for him. But anyway, they might have needed him. They ended up losing in the end here. So Michigan wins. All right, the Kentucky Wildcats and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Kentucky's surprising everybody. They beat South Carolina 24-10. They went to 5-0. Nobody saw Kentucky doing this. They beat Florida, Missouri, now South Carolina. They played Texas A&M next week, which I'll break down. The running back for Kentucky, Benny Snell, ran for 99 yards and a touchdown. Their defense played really, really well, they had 4 sacks. They held South Carolina down. Jake Bentley, the quarterback for South Carolina, below 50% passing, 13-28, 148. He threw 3 interceptions. Kentucky has it rolling right now. They came out with the win in that. All right, the Texas Longhorns took on the Kansas State Wildcats, and Texas, they went up 19-0. They had a punt return for a touchdown. They had a safety. They scored on offense. Sam Ehlinger was 29 of 36 for 207 yards and a touchdown. They seemingly were going to win going away, and Kansas State almost came back. Kansas State scored 14 points in the second half, but that was all they could do. Texas did win 19-14. And now Texas has a big game against Oklahoma next week. The next game, all right, the Oregon Ducks bounced back from that heartbreaking loss last week. They took on the California Golden Bears. That Oregon won 42-24, and they pretty much blew them out. They were up 35-10 at one time. Cal scored a little bit late to make it 35-24, and then Oregon got their second defensive touchdown of the game, scoring on a pick six to put the game away. They forced 5 turnovers. Justin Herbert, the quarterback for Oregon, 16 of 22, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They had 2 guys rush for over 100 yards. Travis Dye, 20 carries, 115 yards and a touchdown. And C.J. Verdell, 9 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. Dylan Mitchell, one of the best receivers in the country, just as a freshman, 7 catches, 105 and a touchdown. I'll shout out, Cal did some nice stuff on offense. Their running back, Patrick Laird, ran for 92 yards and a touchdown, but their quarterback, Brandon McElwain, he was 11 of 21, 128, a touchdown, 2 picks. Wasn't great passing, but he ran for 123 yards and a touchdown, and he's the first quarterback at Cal to run for over 100 yards since Joe Kapp did it back in 1958. So it's been, 60 years? And anybody knows Joe Kapp? He used to be the quarterback for the Vikings way back in the day. Led them to their first Super Bowl appearance way back when. But Cal, they're 3-1, and they should make it tough for everybody else in the Pac-12. Oregon wins that one. All right, the Michigan State Spartans took on the Central Michigan Chippewas, and Michigan State, they went out to a 31-3 lead, but then they only went 31-20. They kind of got sloppy later on. They let Central Michigan come back, but Michigan State, Brian Lewerke wasn't great passing. He did the work on the ground. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. They ran for 160 yards as a team. Kind of just an ugly win. Michigan State, they normally don't win. They're not normally an explosive offense. They normally are a good defense, but their defense let Central Michigan back in the game. So Michigan State has stuff to work on even after their win. The Virginia Tech Hokies, they bounced back. They beat the ranked Duke Blue Devils, and they beat them pretty soundly, 31-14. Josh Jackson, the quarterback for Virginia Tech, did not play, but Ryan Willis came in. He's a transfer from Kansas. He was 17 of 27, 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had a great game. Their defense, they bounced way back after the week before getting humiliated for over 630 yards. They held down Duke to 14 points. Duke had Daniel Jones back at quarterback, but he was okay. They were held to 71 rushing yards. And Virginia Tech, they're setting up for a big game next week against Notre Dame, and watch out for that breakdown in my previews. All right, the Florida Gators, they took on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and this was a slugfest. The Gators came out with a 13-6 win. Their defense played really, really well. They had 6 sacks as a defense. Their offense, they scored the only touchdown of the game on a trick play. Kadarius Toney, who was a quarterback in high school, he's kind of their all-purpose receiver / running back / whatever. He had the passing touchdown, but it was enough to win. Their defense played really well. They held Nick Fitzgerald to 11 of 26 for 98 yards. They held Mississippi State to only 104 yards rushing, 202 total yards. Their defense played great, and they have a huge game against LSU next weekend. And if they want any chance of winning that game, their defense has to play like they did in this one. So the next game, the Texas A&M Aggies took on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Texas A&M, they returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. They went up pretty big, 17-7 at one point. Kellen Mond, the quarterback, he threw 2 picks, not very good. Luckily, they have one of the best running backs in the SEC in Travion Williams, who ran for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Arkansas, they made a game of it. They lost 24-17. They came back though, but it just wasn't enough, and Texas A&M win. The Indiana Hoosiers took on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Indiana went up 24-7 in this game. They let Rutgers almost come back, but Indiana held on to win. Peyton Ramsey, the quarterback for Indiana, was 27 of 40, 288, a touchdown, a pick, and ran for 51 yards and a touchdown. And Rutgers, they still can't do a whole lot. Their quarterback play is still pretty bad. It was better, 18 of 35, 154, touchdown, a pick. That's like the best quarterback play they've had this season, which is not good for them. But Indiana moved to 4-1. They're only 2 games away from bowl eligibility, so we'll keep an eye on that. Army Black Knights, they came in after almost defeating Oklahoma against a 4-0 Buffalo team and destroyed them. Army won 42-13. They ran for 281 yards. They even went 4 or 5 passing for 91 yards and a touchdown. They had a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. They pretty much did whatever they wanted. Buffalo, their quarterback Tyree Jackson was 10 of 24. His worst game of the year. Anthony Johnson didn't really play a whole lot. He was injured, the wide receiver for Buffalo. It was just all Army. Alright, the next game, Oklahoma State Cowboys took on the Kansas Jayhawks. Oklahoma State, they won going away 48-28. Quarterback Taylor Cornelius, 15 of 20, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, a pick. Justice Hill, one of the best running backs in the country, had 31 carries, 189, and a touchdown. And even their wide receivers, Landon Wolf, 6 catches, 116, and a touchdown. Tylan Wallace, 4 catches, 104, and a touchdown. Landon Wolf's a pretty cool story. He came into the season not having a scholarship, and he was a walk-on. They awarded him a scholarship before the season started. He didn't play a whole lot. One of the players for Oklahoma State has decided to transfer. His first significant action, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Had a great game. Kansas, I'll give them credit. They put up 28. Their quarterback Carter Stanley was 24-32, 247, 3 touchdowns. Their running back Puka Williams ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. They've been able to put up some points this year. It's just that they're not putting up more points than the other team. Alright, next game, Temple Owls and Boston College Eagles. Now, this was a game I thought would be close, which it was. I thought it would be like low scoring close. It was not. Boston College won 45-35. Running back A.J. Dillon ran all over them for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. The backup running back, Ben Glines, went for 120 yards and a touchdown. Anthony Brown, his completion percentage was not very good, 15 of 33, but he had 2 touchdown passes. They luckily though because their defense couldn't really stop Temple. Their Raquel Armstead, 24 carries, 171 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Isaiah Wright at wide receiver, 7 catches, 114. And somehow Temple, they had a fumble return for a touchdown. That means they've had, in all 5 games they played this year, they've had at least 1 non-offensive touchdown in those 5 games. So 5 straight games where they've scored a touchdown by way of something other than their offense. By blocked punt returns, or by fumble returns or interception returns. It's a crazy streak going in. Maybe they'll keep it going to the next game. But they couldn't. It wasn't enough to overcome Boston College this day. Bowling Green Falcons took on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Georgia Tech, this is all them. They won 63-17. They ran for 372 yards as an offense. Their backup quarterback got in and ran for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. In a weird quirk of a thing, Bowling Green, they're from Ohio, and this is Georgia Tech's first game ever against a team from Ohio, which is crazy because there's like 9 or 10 teams in Ohio, and Georgia Tech has never played any of them till now. It's kind of weird. Jarrett Dagey, the quarterback for Bowling Green, he had an okay day. He passed for 305 yards and a touchdown and 2 picks, which didn't help. Scott Miller, he just catches a bunch of balls. He had 10 catches, 117 yards. And I'm going to shout out Clinton Lynch. He's a running back for Georgia Tech. He went over 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing for his career, which he's the first Georgia Tech player to ever do that. So, which is saying a lot because Georgia Tech doesn't pass it, and he still manages over 1,000 yards receiving in even in the career. So that was really good by them. All right, next game, Virginia Cavaliers took on the North Carolina State Wolfpack. North Carolina State won 35-21. It was kind of close for a while, but Ryan Finley, 22-32, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks for North Carolina State. Kelvin Harmon, 6 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Ricky Person Jr. ran for 108 yards. Bryce Perkins for Virginia, he kind of kept him in a little bit. He passed for 258, 2 touchdowns. But he also threw 2 interceptions. Olamide Zacchaeus, 9 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, the wide receiver for Virginia. And with those, he is now 4th in school history in receiving yards. So he's been doing really well for them in his career, but it wasn't enough this day to overcome NC State. All right, the UMass Minutemen took on the Ohio Bobcats, and this was the shootout of all shootouts. After the first quarter alone, UMass was up 21-14, but then they couldn't hold on, and Ohio won 58-42. Yeah, 58-42. The quarterback for Ohio, Nathan Rourke, 23-32, 270 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, and he ran for 189 yards and a touchdown. And they had another running back, Malik Irons, ran for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Neither defense, I guess, showed up at the stadium. The quarterback for UMass, Andrew Ford, 27 of 38, 355, 4 touchdowns. Andy Isabella, one of the best receivers, maybe in the country, that most people don't know about. He had 12 catches, 198 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That game, I pretty much watch all the games, or try to watch all of them as much as I can, and I was glued to this one, even with the other stuff going on. It's back and forth. Love those games. Ohio gets that win. Georgia State Panthers took on the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks, and I did not see this coming. Georgia State killed them. The final was 46-14. Quarterback Dan Ellington, 15 of 18, 179 and a touchdown. He also added 64 yards rushing and a touchdown. Seth Page ran for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Georgia State just kind of did whatever they wanted. Louisiana Monroe didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, they had 3 sacks as a team, but it was Georgia State's game going away. Penny Hart, wide receiver for Georgia State, he did have a punt return for a touchdown in it. All right, next game, the Ball State Cardinals took on the Kent State Golden Flashes, and it was all Ball State. They won 52-24. Riley Neal had a career game, 30 of 50, 402 yards, 4 touchdown passes to 1 pick, and ran for 61 yards and a touchdown. Riley Miller, phenomenal game, 11 catches, 208 yards receiving, and a touchdown. It was all Ball State. The quarterback for Kent State, he did pretty well. Woody Barrett, 30 of 44, 314, a touchdown pick. But that was kind of all they could really do. Ball State won going away in that one. One of the surprises of the year, Cincinnati Bearcats. They poured it on UConn. They moved to 5-0 and they won 49-7, and who knows how far they can go. Desmond Ridder, the quarterback for Cincinnati, was 20 of 26 for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Warren II, he had 106 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And Josiah Deguara had 5 catches, 112 and a touchdown. And if I'm not mistaken, Michael Warren II, he is second in the nation with rushing touchdowns. And so, yeah, he's got 10 rushing touchdowns in the season, which puts him number 2 in the country behind Devin Singletary at Florida Atlantic, which I'll get to later. They their defense was great. Their offense clearly was great. UConn still, they couldn't do a whole lot, and it was Cincinnati's game going away. All right, Old Dominion in a bounce back game, or not a bounce back game, but a possible letdown game after upsetting Virginia Tech. They played ECU. I picked ECU to win, and they did at the end. They won 37-35. It was a close game. The quarterback for ECU, Reed Herring, was 24-42, 309, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. The 2 picks is a little bit too high. And even though they gave up 34 points, their defense had 9 sacks. They needed every one of them, or else Old Dominion may very well have one going away. Nate Harvey, defensive end, he had 3 sacks alone. The quarterback for Old Dominion, Blake LaRussa, he passed for 250, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Wide receiver Jonathan Duhart had 8 catches, 104 yards, but it was ECU's day, and they won. All right, Coastal Carolina Chanticleer took on the Troy Trojans. I thought it would be a little bit closer, but Coastal Carolina went in with a true freshman quarterback in Bryce Carpenter, who was Florida's Mr. Football last year. He played pretty well in his first start. He was 18 of 22 for 172, a touchdown, a pick. Ran for 24 yards rushing, but Troy was too much in a 45-21 win. Caleb Barker, 12 of 15, 143 yards and a touchdown. They had 2 guys rush for over 100 yards. Jabir Daughtry, 5 carries for 140 and a touchdown. BJ Smith, 10 carries, 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a kick return for a touchdown by Marcus Jones, who's actually one of the best kick returners in the country. He had 3 kick returns for touchdowns last season and has had the one in this game. Troy, they had 9 sacks defensively, and they won that one pretty handedly. All right, the Western Michigan Broncos took on the Miami of Ohio Redhawks, and this was a back and forth game. Western Michigan scored with like under 3 minutes left to win 40-39. And Miami even had a shot. They missed a 50-yard field goal with 23 seconds left that most likely would have won the game for them. Gus Ragland, the quarterback from Miami of Ohio, he passed for 294, 3 touchdowns. Jack Sorensen had 9 catches for 156, but the player of the game was John Wasink, the quarterback for Western Michigan. As much as I was harping on how good the running backs were for Western Michigan, Wasink, all he did was pass for 439 yards and 5 touchdowns. And ran for another touchdown. And he didn't throw any interceptions. Dwayne Eskridge had 7 catches, 141. Jaden Reed, 7 catches, 137. 4 touchdowns. It's like it's more than a hat trick. It's a hat trick in 1. I don't know. Whatever. West Virginia, they moved to 3-2 with that win. Alright, South Alabama Jaguars took on Appalachian State Mountaineers, and this was not even close. Appalachian State won 52-7. They're the best team in the Sun Belt, I think. They may be one of the best teams in the group of 5. I don't know that their quarterback didn't play great. Zach Thomas, 8 of 18, 146, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's not good, but they ran for 348 yards as a team. Jalen Moore ran for 123 and 2 touchdowns. They held. They're the number 1 scoring offense and the number 1 defense in the Sun Belt, averaging like 50-something points a game. They kind of just do whatever they want. They score however they want. They did it pretty much all on offense this week. And last week they did it on offense, defense, and special teams. So they just do whatever. USA didn't really have a whole lot going for them. It was all Appalachian State. All right, the Rice Owls took on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and Wake Forest, they went up and put up 56. They won 56-24. They had two 2 defensive touchdowns in this game, which is the first time they've done that in a game since 2008. Sam Hartman, the quarterback for Wake Forest, 15 of 17, 241, 4 touchdown passes. Pretty amazing. Greg Dortch, 11 catches, 163 yards. Oh, and he had all 4 of those touchdown receptions. So, Wake Forest is able to pour it on there. I can shout out, Rice. They did put up 24 points. Their running back, Austin Walter, ran for 165 yards and a touchdown. That, it doesn't matter that who you are, who you're playing. That's a great game. Wake Forest takes on Clemson next week, and Clemson better watch out. I'm going to break that down in my previews later on. All right, Purdue, Nebraska. Nebraska went to 0-4 under Scott Frost. Purdue won 42-28. Quarterback David Blau was 25 of 42, 328 yards and a touchdown. The quarterback for Nebraska, Adrian Martinez, he had a nice game. 323, 2 touchdowns and a pick, added 91 yards rushing. In fact, Nebraska outgained Purdue in yards. They had 582 total yards to 516 yards, but they had 11 penalties. Now, Purdue had 12 on their own, but Nebraska needs to clean stuff up, even though their running back, Divine Ozigbo, ran for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. J.D. Spielman had 10 catches, 135, and 2 touchdowns. So their offense was able to move it up and down, but Purdue, Bryce Hopkins, 5 catches, 103, and a touchdown there, and Purdue wins that one. All right, the Florida State Seminoles took on the Louisville Cardinals, and Florida State ended up winning 28-24, but Louisville, they had it. They were up by 10 in the game, 24-14. They had the ball with under 2 minutes left, a 1st and 10, and for some reason they called a freaking pass play, and he threw an interception, and Florida State took it, and they scored with under a minute left to win. Louisville just gave them that gift. DeAndre Francois, to his credit, he passed for 294, had 4 touchdown passes. Nyquan Murray had 6 catches, 114, and 2 touchdowns. The quarterback for Louisville, Jawan Pass, he did pass for 366. He passed for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. But the 2 interceptions, especially the one late, that pretty much cost them the game. I don't know what they were thinking. Jalen Smith had 5 catches for 100 yards in that one. But Florida State ends up with the win. Alright, the 1AA Tennessee State Tigers took on the Vanderbilt Commodores, and it was a back and forth game. Vanderbilt won 31-27. Kyle Shermer, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, passed for 297, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Keyshawn Vaughn, who's a transfer from Illinois, had 146 rushing yards and a touchdown. Elijah Lipscomb had 9 catches, 174 and 2 touchdowns. Tennessee State, they had an interesting team. They had Demery Croft. He was 22 of 31, 269, 3 touchdowns, and he was a transfer from Minnesota. And he ran for 41 yards as well. Trayon Harris, 8 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. And if that sounds familiar to you Gator fans, he was a Gator. In 2014, he played for us. He was a quarterback. Honestly, I thought he was done, but he moved around, transferred different places. Now he's a wide receiver. In fact, Demery Croft, the quarterback, he was a transfer from Minnesota. Trayon Harris is a transfer from Florida. And then Christian Abercrombie, the linebacker I mentioned at the top of the video that got hurt in the game and had that brain surgery, he was a transfer from Illinois. So apparently Tennessee State, they pretty much recruit when teams recruit the best players from a high school, I guess they just go around the country and look for the players that don't really play a whole lot for the 1A teams, and they go get them. But Vanderbilt ended up with that victory. All right, Nevada took on Air Force, and what ended up being a closer game, Nevada won 28-25. They were up 28-10. Air Force in the game, they had a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, which is a school record. But they weren't really able to stop Nevada until it was too late. Quarterback for Nevada, Ty Ganji, was 24 of 33, 259, 4 touchdown passes. And they were able to stop Air Force's triple option offense pretty well enough to win anyway. So Nevada gets that victory and goes to 3-2 on the year. All right, one of the better games of the day, Utah Utes faced the Washington State Cougars, and Utah came in with the #1 scoring defense in the country and the #1 total defense, facing Washington State's high-octane offense and Gardner Minshew, who I keep touting, and he led them to a 28-24 win. Gardner Minshew was 31 of 56, 445 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. This stat is only a Mike Leach stat, who's the coach for Washington State. They had 445 total yards, and Gardner Minshew passed for 445 total yards. So this is what Mike Leach does. He gets all his yards passing. They had like 10 total carries for 0 yards. they count sacks in with the rushing yards in college, but even their top running back had 5 carries for 13 yards. It's kind of what they do. And Washington State, like I said, Utah had the #1 defense, allowing 12 points a game. Washington State put up 28. They only allowed 204 yards per game. Washington State put up 445. The running back for Utah, Zach Moss, he went for 106 yards and a touchdown. It was even for the first half, and then Washington State threw an 89-yard touchdown pass late in the game. Esau Winston, 4 catches, 115 and a touchdown. Desmond Patton, 5 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. And Washington State went to 4-1. All right, next game, Liberty Flame took on the New Mexico Lobos, and this was a shootout. Liberty Flames won 52-43. The quarterback for Liberty, they were up 42-10 at halftime and almost let New Mexico come all the way back. Their quarterback for Liberty, Stephen Calvert, 24-41, 417, 3 touchdowns and a pick. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. B.J. Farrow, 7 catches, 122 and a touchdown. And Antonio Gandy-Golden, a name you guys should always remember. He's a really, really good wide receiver. He only had 11 catches for a school record 245 yards receiving and a touchdown. That's just what they do there. They just throw it all over the place and score bunches of points. New Mexico, their quarterback, Sharian Jones, passed for 312, 4 touchdowns, but he did throw 3 interceptions, which is one reason why they lost in an exciting game. But Liberty ends up with that big-time victory for them. All right, the Arkansas State Red Wolves took on the Georgia Southern Eagles, and this was a game I thought might be close. I picked Arkansas State, but before the season I thought Georgia Southern, if they got their option going, maybe they can be a contender in the Sun Belt, and here we are. Georgia Southern won 28-21. They had a great call. They did a reverse and got a 47-yard touchdown run with 19 seconds to go to get the lead and ended up winning the game with that. The quarterback for Georgia Southern, Shea Wertz, he only completed 1 pass, but it was for a 61-yard touchdown. He ran for 113 yards and a touchdown. Wesley Kennedy III ran for 105 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 348 as a team, which is what they do. They're a triple option team. Arkansas State, Justice Hanson, one of the better quarterbacks in the group of 5, I would say. 38-50, 376 and a touchdown. Added 40 yards rushing and another touchdown. But it wasn't enough to win. Normally, their offense puts up more than 21, and they couldn't do it. So credit to Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern held on to the ball, so normally they hold on to the ball, but Arkansas State had it longer than them. Georgia Southern just beat them. All right, Northern Illinois took on the Eastern Michigan Eagles, and Northern Illinois won in triple overtime, 26-23. In fact, Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan, the last 3 games they played each other have gone to overtime. Apparently, they don't realize it's usually a 4-quarter game. but it's always a close game. It seems to between them, no matter how good or bad or whatever the other team is. Eastern Michigan, their quarterback play was subpar. Tyler Weigers was 17 of 40. I mean, I guess it was good enough to keep it close. Quarterback for Northern Illinois, Marcus Childers. His passing wasn't great, 121, a touchdown, 2 picks, but he did add 77 yards rushing. Trey Harbison, a running back, he had 32 carries for 136 and a touchdown, and helped lead Northern Illinois to that overtime victory. All right, Southern Methodist took on Houston Baptist, 1AA team, and so it was all Southern Methodist. They won 63-27. Not a whole lot to say except one. It'll be more in my previews because Southern Methodist takes on UCF next week, and they have the potential to maybe put up 63 again. We'll see. Really, the main things cool things to take away, they had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. Reggie Roberson, 4 catches, 104. Tyler Page, 3 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown, and caught a 92-yard touchdown pass. And also, Southern Methodist, they scored a fake field goal, which was a pretty cool play. If you can find a video for that, maybe we can put a link in the description. It's just a cool, nice design, cool play to watch. Alright, the UTEP Miners took on the UTSA Roadrunners, and UTSA won 30-21, extending UTEP's losing streak to 17 straight losses. The quarterback for UTEP had a pretty good game though. Kai Loxley, he was 10 of 16, 117, a touchdown, a pick, and ran for 106 yards and a touchdown. Kept them in that game for a while. UTSA, their quarterback Cordell Grundy, passed for 187, 2 touchdowns, and ran for a touchdown as well. And UTSA came away with the win in that one. All right, the Florida Atlantic Owls took on the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders, and Florida Atlantic was up 24-10, and late in the game, Middle Tennessee, they came back. Middle Tennessee scored a touchdown with 38 seconds left, and instead of kicking the extra point to tie it and send it possibly to overtime, they decided to go for the win or the 2-point conversion, which would put them up a point, and they got it. And Middle Tennessee won 25-24. Brent Stockstill, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the group of 5. He passed for 259, a touchdown, a pick. Devin Singletary, the running back for Florida Atlantic, 34 carries, 118, and 2 touchdowns. That's all he does. Is just he leads the nation. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns this year. He is extending his. Now he's run for a touchdown in 18 consecutive games, which is a CUSA record. And I was able to look up that the NCAA record for consecutive games scoring a touchdown is 27 straight games, and that was by Lee Suggs, if anybody remembers, one of the great running backs for Virginia Tech from 2000 to 2002. So maybe, who knows if he can keep that going. He wouldn't be able to. That's 9 more games. I don't think they have 9 more games in the season. He is a junior though. So if he can extend it through the season and he comes back next year, but I have a feeling Devin Singletary may leave school early. He's really, really good. I gotta check to see how many exactly games they have left. Potentially, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If they make this USA Championship game, that's 8. In a bowl game, that's 9. So he could potentially tie that at the end of this year, depending on what they do. But it's kind of a silver lining thing. They came out with a loss, and it was actually a conference loss, and that could end up hurting them later in the season. Maybe they don't even make that CUSA Championship game. Who knows? But congrats to Middle Tennessee. All right, Boise State Broncos took on the Wyoming Cowboys, and it wasn't. The score was 34-14. They were up 24-0 at halftime. Brett Ripien, the quarterback for Boise State, all he does is throw the ball around and touchdown passes. He was 28 of 42, 342, 2 touchdowns. A.J. Richardson had 6 catches, 113 and a touchdown. The most I can really say for Wyoming is their running back, Nico Evans, ran for 141 and a touchdown. One of it was a 75-yard touchdown run, but it was that was Boise State's game. They had 5 sacks on defense, and they're setting up for a really big game next week against San Diego State, which I'll break down in my previews later. All right, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors took on San Jose State in a much closer game than I anticipated. Hawaii put up 44 points, which is what I thought they would put up against San Jose State. However, San Jose State put up 41 points. It went to 5 overtime. Guys, San Jose State was up on Hawaii. Hawaii came back. They tied it. They went to the first overtime, but they both scored touchdowns. Then in the second and the third overtime, they each missed 2 field goals. So then they scored in the fourth overtime, and then the fifth one, Hawaii got a field goal. San Jose State did not. So Hawaii won 44-41. There were numbers all over the place here. Let's start with San Jose State, the losing team. Josh Love passed for 451 yards and 3 touchdowns. They had Josh Oliver had 8 catches for 158 yards and a touchdown for them. Bailey Gaither, 2 catches, 97 yards and a touchdown. And then go over to Hawaii side. The quarterback Cole McDonald, who I'm boosting up all year, he threw for 34 of 57, 341, 4 touchdowns. He did throw his second interception of the year, but now he's got 24 touchdown passes to 2 interceptions. That's unbelievable. John Ursua, who I keep calling out as well, one of the best receivers in the country. 13 catches, 148 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They needed every single one of those yards and scores, but they came out with the win, and that's really all they needed. They're 5-1 now, and they're this close to becoming bowl eligible. So the Charlotte 49ers took on the UAB Blazers. UAB won 28-7. It was pretty much UAB was in control. The quarterback AJ Erdley was 13 of 16, 214, a touchdown, and ran for a touchdown as well. He's a very solid quarterback. Sometimes he puts up monster games, but normally that's about it. You can rely on him to have a nice completion percentage. He gets a couple, some running yards here and there. And their defense played well too. Charlotte had been looking pretty decent on offense and holding them to 7 points. And Charlotte did have a receiver go over 100 yards. Rico Arnold, 7 for 109. But it was UAB's game. All right, Iowa State took on TCU, and TCU won in a slugfest, 17-14. They had a fumble return for a touchdown. At one point, Iowa State was down 14-7, and on the drive they went down. They tied it at 14, and on that drive, they had a 3rd and 25, and their quarterback Zeb Nolan, he's not like a running quarterback. He ran for 28 yards. How do you let the quarterback for the other team run 28 yards on 3rd and 25 for a first down and almost win? Now TCU ended up getting a field goal at the end to win 17-14. But how does that happen? The running back for Iowa State, David Montgomery, he's always good for 100 yards. He ran for 101 and a touchdown. The quarterback Sean Robinson, he was 21 of 29, 182, touchdown to pick. He got hurt later in the game, but it didn't affect them on the field anyway because Tennessee ended up winning. All right, one of the better games of the day, Louisiana Tech took on North Texas, which I was looking forward to. Both offenses are really good. I thought it would be a close game, and it ended up being. North Texas took an early 21-6 lead, and Louisiana Tech came back all the way. Louisiana Tech won 29-27. North Texas had a chance in the end to win. They had a 46-yard field goal try with 33 seconds left, and Louisiana Tech blocked it. Louisiana Tech, their quarterback Jamar Smith passed for 230, 2 touchdowns. They had Rashid Bonnett at wide receiver, had 101 yards receiving on 5 catches. They, after North Texas, put up the 21 points, their defense really held on strong. They had 5 sacks on their defense. The quarterback for North Texas, Mason Fine, he normally can pass it all around, and he did. 296, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Rico Bussey Jr. had 9 catches, 112, and 2 touchdowns. Their running back, Lauren Easley, ran for 110 yards and a touchdown. So both offenses were able to move it, were able to put up some points. I know it's a really big conference win for Louisiana Tech and the CUSA. All right, the Florida International Golden Panthers took on 1AA Arkansas Pine Bluff, and FIU won going away 55-9. Quarterback James Morgan, listen to this. He only completed 9 passes. He was 9 of 14 for 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's like, I don't know. I can't do that in my head right now. Maurice Alexander had 5 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown. They had he had at least 2 touchdown passes over 75 yards. Their running back Devontae Price, 5 carries, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and he had a 7-yard touchdown run. They ran for 220. They passed for 393 as a team. They just had their way with them. All right, Marshall took on Western Kentucky in a closer game than I thought. Marshall ended up winning 20-17. Western Kentucky hadn't played very well, but this is kind of a rivalry game between them. In the past few years, maybe about the last 5 years, they always play each other hard. Quarterback for Marshall, Isaiah Green. His completion percentage was not good, 18 of 39. He passed for 288, 2 touchdowns, and he threw 3 interceptions. It was kind of an ugly game. Both teams combined for 7 turnovers, which is partially what kept it so low, and maybe partially why Marshall didn't beat them by more, because they had 4 of the turnovers. Tyree Brady, wide receiver for Marshall, had 8 catches, 162, and 2 touchdowns. The quarterback, Stephen Duncan, for Western Kentucky, passed for 263, a touchdown and a pick, and added a rushing touchdown. But Marshall was able to end up with the victory there. All right, Arizona State took on Oregon State. Pay attention to this one. Arizona State won 52-24. Arizona State's quarterback, Manny Wilkins, 162 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. That's awesome. This game was about the running backs. First, let me start with the losing team. Oregon State, Jamar Jefferson ran for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, second highest rushing yardage by one person in school history. And he wasn't even the game's leading rusher. Eno Benjamin for Arizona State, 30 carries, 312 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Yes, 3. 3, 1, 2. 312 yards. School record rushing yards in a game. I think he's still running. I don't know. He had a game for the ages. And Arizona State wins big in that one. All right, USC Trojans took on the Arizona Wildcats, and USC was up 24-0, and then Arizona almost came back. It was 24-20. Arizona missed an extra point and a field goal in that game. So USC's got to do something. Luckily, they have a really good running game. They ran for 253 as a team. Cedric Ware ran for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. USC wasn't helping themselves. They had 18 penalties. They got to fix some stuff. They came out with a win in this, but in the future they got to fix some stuff. Khalil Tate, he was subpar. He brought him back though. He threw 2 for 232 and 2 touchdowns. He can't run the way he was. He's injured. He's kind of hobbling on that leg. I don't know what's wrong with him, but USC comes out with the win there. In the final game of the night, the Toledo Rockets took on the Fresno State Bulldogs. It was kind of close for like a quarter, but Fresno State won 49-27. Quarterback Marcus McMaryion for Fresno State passed for 368, 4 touchdowns and a pick. He added another rushing touchdown. Running back Jordan Mims had an interesting game. He only ran for 59 yards and a touchdown, but he caught 6 passes for 126 yards and a touchdown. Their wide receiver, Keyshawn Johnson, 6 catches, 102, 2 touchdowns. No, he's not related to that Keyshawn Johnson. The Toledo, they have a potent offense. I thought this game would be a little bit closer. John Vay Johnson, wide receiver, had 6 catches, 112, and 2 touchdowns, but Fresno, they weren't really able to stop Fresno State's offense in that one. So those are the reviews for week 5. I'm probably going to do something a little bit extra. I'm going to maybe make a video called Stat Attack, because now we're getting to the point in the season where teams are becoming bowl eligible. Teams are, players getting closer to that 1,000-yard threshold, whether it's 1,000 yards receiving and rushing. I'm gonna start making a video every week, so we can stat watch, follow these players, see how quickly they get to 1,000, how quickly these teams get to that bowl eligibility. So watch out for that. Go check out our other videos, the reviews, previews, everything. Go to our Twitter. Please subscribe, share this. Go in my Facebook group, Fan of Football 813. Peace.